Most people don't know what's holding them back, but you do because you listen to me, Sam, your self-care guru and journal junkie. Welcome to Journal Entries, your safe place where you can tune in weekly to get tips, tricks, and journal prompts to uncover your feelings, gain clarity, and make your move. Happy Halloween! Welcome to this week's journal entry. If you are listening on Halloween, happy 1 year of listening to journal entries. I launched this podcast 1 year ago, and I am just so excited that I've been around for a year and came up with topics for a full year. And most importantly, been able to stay open and vulnerable with you so that you can see a glimmer of yourself in me and my story and use it as inspiration in your own lives. That's really what this podcast was created for. So thank you so much for tuning in. Happy 1 year. Happy Halloween. I am going to do a spooky, scary episode for you today. I was asking myself, is there anything scary about journaling? And almost immediately I was like, yeah, like I didn't journal intentionally for the longest time. At first it was subconscious and then it became very conscious. But it was because I had this feeling deep down that I knew something was there. And that once I uncovered it and I brought it to light, my life wouldn't be the same. Things would be put into place that would change the direction of my life. And that is a scary thing, especially for someone who is not a risk taker, who really values comfort and stability. Knowing that that feeling was there, I pushed it down for years, truthfully. And it was really scary and truthfully took a lot of, I believe, bravery to eventually turn inward. And my first journal entry of really journaling, because there were years where I journaled, but it was just filled with affirmations and gratitude, nothing that addressed the actual feelings and desires that were underneath the surface level. But my first journal entry that did it, I wasn't like, okay, today's the day, let's go deep. I'm going to uncover that thing. It wasn't that at all. It was truthfully like, okay, how am I feeling? And I just did that brain dump. You've heard the story of my whole vent sesh inside my journal. But by doing that, slowly but surely, I did uncover what I wanted. And it at first came to me when I started noticing who I was at that point in my life. And I saw myself turning into a woman in a mediocre marriage, a woman who knew that she deserved more and always wondered if I was going to get it in this lifetime. And also a woman who wasn't communicating because I didn't want to have the hard conversations. I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. I didn't want to risk my conversation ruining the energy of the day and walking on those eggshells and all these things. And I realized that who I was, if I kept staying this course, I would keep shrinking into someone that I wasn't meant to be. And I knew I was not meant to be that person. I was meant to be in a thriving marriage that, yes, has its ups and downs, but like truthfully feels supported and like loved, and like knowing that I am getting what I deserve and feeling worthy and deserving of all of these things, and having the hard conversations in a relationship. And I knew that that was the type of woman that I wanted to be. And so when I started digging deeper in my journal, that was the intention. It wasn't these journal entries that was as dramatic as that all might sound, but it was just small daily journal entries where I started to see my life in a different perspective and start questioning it. Just start questioning what I was doing, how I was behaving, how I would like to behave in certain situations, things like that. And once I did have the clarity and the certainty that came with uncovering all of this, that did exactly what I thought it would do. It changed my life because I became aware of certain things that I needed to do. And in my instance, you all know that the biggest change was my marriage. And once I uncovered all of this in my journal, I didn't just leave my marriage. I asked myself, what was my role and what could I do? So in my situation, I knew that I needed to communicate these things with my ex-husband. Knowing that I was not a great communicator, but also, little caveat here. I remember trying to have hard conversations in the very beginning of our relationship, and they just did not go well, to the point where I internalized, don't bring things up. If it's not that big of a deal, don't talk about it, essentially. And so I think it was that too. It's not just that I wasn't a good communicator. It was that I didn't know how to communicate with this person. So I wrote letters because I was already journaling. And so in my journal, I was like, this is how I feel, and this is what I want, and this is what I need. And so I wrote letters to explain everything. And it felt really validating because throughout those letters, I had lots of drafts and edits, so that at first it was very emotionally charged. But by the time that I gave it to my partner, it was like, it was a good presentation, not too over the top, but very clear on what I was feeling, what caused it, and what I needed to see change in our relationship. And nothing ended up changing, essentially, after multiple letters, multiple conversations, one huge blow up fight in person. Like it was like a movie, I feel like. Anyways, I think that I always knew that that was going to be the end result, that me leaving or the relationship ending was going to be the end result, because I knew my ex. I knew who he was, and I avoided having these conversations for so long. It was just that journaling gave me that clarity. It gave me the certainty of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up in this world. And it gave me the self-worth, or the realization of the amount of self-worth that I should have to finally ask for what I needed. That is what journaling provided for me, which is very empowering, but it's also very scary when you know that it might be ending something, or it might be changing the course of your life into the unknown, potentially, most likely better, right? I am divorced, single mom, so many responsibilities now, but I would say that my life is better now, but it's just scary. And so prioritizing your emotions, especially when you've never done it before, is even scarier. So I'm going to guide you on 4 prompts to get you started and make it hopefully a little bit less scary. Prompt number 1. Why am I afraid to tap into my emotions? And this is kind of prompt 1A. What is my biggest fear that I think might be uncovered? So if it were me, my biggest fear is that I was going to have to leave my partner. I knew that even before I was married. I remember going to a personal development seminar, and I have never been to one of these seminars before, but I remember literally like my insides felt like they were shaking. I was so nervous because I had never tapped into my emotions in this way and like developed myself in this way. And I was so scared that it was going to challenge me in my relationship. And I remember at that conference, there were questions that were guiding you through your emotions, but I consciously chose not to focus on my relationship and instead focus on binge eating, which did help, but it also definitely felt like I was avoiding the actual issue. So for you, what is that biggest fear that you think might be uncovered if you journal? Why are you afraid to tap into your emotions at this point? Journal prompt number 2. What is the worst case scenario if you don't address this area of your life? Journal prompt number 3. What is the best case scenario? If I were to look back on these 2 questions before my divorce, I would say that the worst case scenario, if I don't address this area of my life, would be that I would just be this mediocre, like living this half version of my life. That would be the worst case scenario for me. But the best case scenario is that my relationship would improve and that we would be so happy together and become excellent communicators. Obviously, that's not what happened, but just trying to paint a picture for you of what your entry might look like, and also give you hope that if it doesn't turn out that way, it can still be a best case scenario. I am living my best case scenario right now. Journal prompt number 4. This is where we're going to actually get into how you're feeling. It's how am I feeling? And what would help me feel better? If you are like me and feeling a lot of things, your how am I feeling question could just be a brain dump, or you could focus on one thing. And what would help me feel better? Same thing. You could do a brain dump of like, oh my God, I need this, 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 and this. But I didn't feel like I knew. It was really hard when somebody would say, what do you need? I'd be like, a glass of water? I don't know. But it was easier for me to think what would help me feel better in this situation or with this particular feeling. I'll write down those prompts for you in the show notes so that you can circle back to it. And also you can circle back to it after this episode, after you listen to this. You can circle back a month from now or a year from now, because these are really great prompts to revisit down the road. Last thing I want to say is that journaling can be a really powerful tool for self-discovery. Obviously, after today, I've shared with you my whole discovery. And the number one fear that I hear from clients and also experience myself is that you're afraid of what you might write. And that is a sign that you need to explore. You need to journal. You need to tap into that. If you're that afraid, that's the indicator that you need to do something about that, or else you will shrink the rest of your life, I believe. So remember that your journal is your safe space. It's private, and you can write anything that you want in there without judgment. You can be as petty as you want. You don't need perfect grammar. You can and if you're afraid to that somebody's going to read it, that's another spooky thing that people have told me. 2 things. 1, there's this theory called write and rip. So you write in your journal and then you literally rip it up and throw it out, or you can burn it if you want to have a ceremony. Another thing that you can do if you are afraid of somebody reading it, I was actually afraid of this as well when my partner was living with me. And so I did have a journal that I wrote in, but I also had a Google Drive document that I would write in, as well as the notes app on my phone, something where I knew that he wasn't going to read it, especially because my folder that I put all of it in was not called journal or diary. I named it like grocery list or something. So there's a little helpful tip for you if you were afraid of that too. But if you need more guidance on how to tap into all of this, because it is a lot. And like I said, it requires bravery and patience too. It took lots and lots of journal entries, but there is, at the time of this episode airing, one more day left to join me in Emotionally Empowered. This is the 4-week group coaching program that starts tomorrow. And all of the women going through this are about to be crystal clear on exactly what they want and need, and where they're at now, and what they need to do to get to where they want to be. Also, they're going to be able to understand their emotions and sort through them and explain them so that they can articulate them to whoever it is they want to communicate them with. They're going to feel connection again. Oh, it's going to feel so fulfilling. And they're going to uncover the exact steps to get there, which is different for everybody, which is why journaling is the solution for you personally versus just doing exactly what I did, because what I did isn't going to get you to where you want to be. So that is a little bit about what these women are going to be achieving throughout this program through, first, a private call. I had a private call last week with one of the women who joined, and I have a couple more scheduled for this week. Our private call is a time for you to just update me on what season you're in. What are you going through? If you have any questions for me or just want to share your stressors with me, it's going to give me the perspective of where you're at, and I'm going to be giving you some journal prompts to help you tap into all of that. And I'm going to be using that to infuse into the rest of the group to ensure that everything that is shared is helping you directly. So we have that private call, and then we have weekly group meetings. This is where we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty of, oh my gosh, taking ownership of where you are and envisioning your future life. And oh my gosh, so many good things. If you want the breakdown of exactly what we're going to be covering, I've got that for you on my website, and 2 different communities. There's going to be a Facebook community for discussion, as well as a group Voxer, which is like a voice memo, like a walkie-talkie app. It's super fun. And I'm going to be giving prompts throughout the week, reviewing your guys' journal entries if you choose to share them. It's going to be so empowering, truthfully. So I can't wait to get started. Go sign up today. It is the last day. And in honor of the 1-year anniversary of journal entries, it is $300 off. Crazy. I just wanted to make this affordable for the insane transformation that you're about to feel. Normally a 4-week group is $497, but this is $197. So go snag it, go snag your spot, and I will see all of you guys tomorrow who end up joining. And even if you don't end up joining, thank you again for tuning in and being a part of this journey. And I commend you for being brave and showing up inside your journal. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's journal entry. I love connecting with my listeners, so make sure you screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at samantha.s.says so I know you're listening. And don't forget to grab your free training and journal prompts at www.samanthapenkoff.com/podcast.